let's do some positive stats. So of course there's, I was like, okay, what's positive about all this, right? Having technology, having um, 5 computers in the home and having everybody on them at the same time and being able to work from home and school from home. And, when we're sick, we can like, oh, it's nice to Zoom and be able to still work, of course. So grateful for some of those technology that we already had set up. So when our kids were at school or when we had to work from home, that we could work and still function. So I mean, it's awesome. So it talks about some stats of, like grandchildren and grandparents and how they can access, of course we use Zoom and we Marco Polo and we FaceTime and we can see each other that way, playing games together. Of course, like EDU, like I talked about, and health opportunities, we can stay connected with family. So juggling that home communication, transportation, all that kind of stuff. When we first did this and we kind of crashed and went into like a honeymoon burnout, and then we like went into a burnout and then a chronic burnout, and then if we are at 2 years plus, we're in a habitual burnout of juggling. So we have to watch burnout in that. Yeah, 75% of elementary age kids were averaging 7.5 hours per day, with 50% of it with a TV in their room. So they're being entertained majority by their electronics. And we can go into your own family values or somebody else's or anything. It's your family values and how you look at that, with having electronics in their room or not, or, but 7.5 hours per day, the average on a teenager, which is later in the slide. I mean, it's pretty high. It's like, oh my goodness, that's a part-time job, or more. So just some awareness on that. I call it Alone Together. There is a book, Together Alone. I looked it up. I'm like, there's a lot of time spent now as a family. And what's happening is we're together more. Okay. We're eating dinner actually more than 2018, 2000, and like I said, here's the statistics during COVID, a little different, but it's like, but we're actually spending more time at home, even before COVID, but we're more disconnected than ever. And and in general, your family might not be, or you might not be, needing to watch this webinar. But the thing is the 20-something-year-olds were the first generation to have a smartphone and to have a phone with them all the time. So we're going to see what that looks like, right? So we're together, but we're alone. We are not connecting in that time spent. So let's see, read a couple of these statistics of family, of course, what time family spends together. 58% of respondents said that the computer screen time has led people to spend less time with their families. That's just how it's been. And this is pre-COVID. And while vast amounts of quantitative data have been collected, no census has been reached. Okay, there we go. About how computers affect family time and relationships. So that's, I had to put, I was like 2009. What can we really pinpoint? Is it the computers? Is it this? Is it, contrary? The UK did a huge study in 2015 that came out that, it's like just over half an hour extra a day. So 347 minutes per day in 2000 and 379 minutes in 2015. So all of the additional time near parents was spent at home. They were alone during all of the additional time though. So that's what I was talking about. So it's like, here's the more time at home in the UK, probably not much different than the US, but but we're spending way more time alone while we're home. So, so gaming and phone use, we're going to talk about neurals, mirroring neurons. So, neuroscience has come a long ways, right? In the last 10 years, we have so much more brain scans and neuroscience happening, and so much more comparison than we've had before. So avoidant behavior. So this is about, let me explain what avoidant behavior is. So avoidant behavior, and then there's distractions. So there's avoidances, and then there's good distractions. That's how I describe it and teach of like, okay, we need distractions. They're healthy, they're good, okay. But avoidances are to escape uncomfortable thoughts, feelings, or expressions or experiences or food or sleep. So avoidances. So think of like what we do to avoid as adults and what we do to avoid as kids. We numb out to things, right? So there's mirroring neurons. Okay, this little picture of the monkey and the guy, it's like teaching the monkey. We have several different monkey research neuron, where they had the monkey's brain, I guess wired up, and the monkey mirrors what the professor's doing, right? Whether it's eating a peanut or whether you're sticking out your tongue or, so we find that the frontal lobes and the parental regions of the brain are much more wider in network of the brain areas that show the mirroring properties in humans more than we previously thought. And there's just more and more science about that. So, you're going to say, what does that have to do with gaming and porn, with game, phone use, with gambling, with, and watching Netflix. So those are all mirroring things. Okay. So if we're mirroring things, what's happening is our brain doesn't always distinguish if we're doing it or if we're mirroring it, if we're actually in the game, so after a certain period of time, our brain kind of goes, wait, we fire the same way, if you will. Our brain fires the same way as if I'm looking at the tree or if I'm imagining I'm looking at the tree. So honestly, so it's like, so those are those mirroring neurons. It's like, well, I can imagine that I'm looking at the tree and my brain fires the same way, if that makes sense. So it's a little bit of that. So mirroring neuron systems involve empathy. Of course, we have that from the 60s of babies crying in front of their mom and then mom having a straight face and then babies going, what's happened? My mom was really happy 5 seconds ago. And then babies, you can see the response. That's empathy. That's the experience and feelings that you get from another person from mirroring. So with that said, if we're mirroring a game that is violent and we're playing it for a long period of time, over time, what is going to happen? There's lots of statistics on that. I could teach on that for an hour of violence and mirroring and what that can lead to in statistics. But so avoidant behavior, escaping feelings. So if we're in mirroring neurons and we're in that system and we're having a hard time with empathy, it's because we're mirroring empathy or we're not mirroring empathy, and that's taught very young. So the avoidant behavior here is checking in. I always, with kids under 12, it's less than an hour at a time. So any kind of gaming, phone use, YouTube, Netflix, it's like, okay, let's have an hour break. Now, most movies are 2 hours. So, okay, fine. That's a reward system. You got a 2-hour movie, and most movies in the theaters are longer than that too. So that's okay. That's a distraction, but if we're doing something repetitive for a very long period without having breaks. So at the bottom here of the screen, it's like 1 hour plus without breaks. That's an avoidant behavior, most likely. A safety behavior is what I teach in the anxiety program. Safety behavior is something that we avoid. We have to have someone with us to go to the store. We don't drive, so we avoid something, right? And so that actually maintains anxiety. So we want to watch what our avoidant behavior is. So we face it or we avoid it, or we use it as a reward system and a distraction, which is healthy in those ways. So a little bit of that. So the gaming use the mirroring neurons. You can teach your kiddos about that. It's like, okay, what's happening when you're mirroring something that's firing your brain, and then it becomes a little obsessive. So cyberbullying, this is affecting families, it's affecting youth, it's affecting a lot of people. And so we have to understand what this is. I mean, there is an electronic harassment charge that is now new, not new, but it's somewhat new if someone's being cyberly bullied, that it's called an electronic harassment. So let's see. So nationwide, okay, 15% almost of students have been electronically bullied. That's really disturbing. And texting, Instagram, Facebook, with all the social media, during the last 12 months. And, of course, Snapchat's not on there, but that's included for sure. Snapchat's a difficult one because it does go off quickly, and it's like, wait, someone's bullying someone or making fun of someone on Snapchat. 12 months before the survey, that and having been electronically bullied was higher among females, almost 20%, and males 10%. And then of course it goes higher into gay, lesbian, and bisexual students, way higher. So so just be aware of that. If you need to do something about it, then talk to your authorities, your school authorities and administrators. So if it's coming through a fellow student of one of your kiddos, so just be aware of some of that cyberbullying. Okay, back to some more internet addiction. So here's the gaming, and here's phone use, and here's FaceTime. And then here's this word addiction. I don't use that as much. We use it as a general term. It's called dependency. So when someone is dependent, which is one of my specialties of dependency, with drugs, alcohol, it doesn't matter what it is. The point is are you going to have withdrawals? I don't know of too many kids and young kids that have been in my office, or my own kid, that wouldn't throw a fit if they get their phone taken away, right? And so you'll have withdrawals. Your brain will have withdrawals. I would have withdrawals. I don't know about you, but say your phone was taken away for a week. Would you have withdrawals? Would you be really angry and frustrated if you had to find an address without GPS? So think about that. And you can chat me, right? You can chat me how that works for you. I get really mad when she tells me to go the wrong way, let alone if I had to rely on my own senses and my own brain like we used to, right? I'm not a spring chicken, but I'm not, too old. But I mean, it's like, what? So what have you experienced with withdrawals? Have you gone off? Have you had a fast from social media? And what kind of withdrawals did you have? When I was in my grad school, we all had to pick something in our addiction class, in our advanced addiction class, to give up. So someone gives up. I think I'm pretty sure I gave up Dr. Pepper. And then someone gave up internet, someone gave up sugar, someone gave up, certain other things like that. And we had to give it up for 6 weeks. And if my brain didn't say, get a Dr. Pepper with popcorn while I'm at the movies, holy cow, it was I had withdrawals. I was like, how I can have water with my popcorn? I can't have a hamburger without a soda, you know? And so I had to train my brain differently and even actually do things differently. I had to prep myself to change that, but I had withdrawals. So you're going to have withdrawals. And so the tolerance, mood modifications, conflict, withdrawals, problems, and relapse, that's all dependency. So when we go into these things as a family and say, you know what, are we dependent on our smartphones? Are we dependent on disconnecting from each other and using our smartphones for those things? So those are some questions that we can ask. The smartphone addiction is in here. You know, it's like functional impairment, tolerance, and withdrawal. Smartphones are not only produce pleasure and reduces feelings of pain and stress, but also leads to failure to control the extent of use. So we have a hard time with stopping, right? We have a failure of control. So if that's happening, we got to check in with ourselves. Do I have control over, you know, my psychological, social aspects, the harmful consequences? We could go into a lot of those things. We always say with our teenagers, they don't have face-to-face, you know, and there's lots of comments like we're not having face-to-face conversations anymore. When I go to a restaurant, that's not true. I see a lot of people with their phones and I see a lot of people talking to each other. And then there's some that are not. And then there's one table that's, you know, they're all on their phones and they're kind of looking down, and then there's other people that they don't have their phones at a restaurant. So, but what is your role in your home is what you have to decide. So let's take a breather. I'm just going to read a chat for a minute. Someone took a social media break for 2 weeks. Noticed I kept reaching for my phone when I was bored or stressed. 100%. I do like to just scroll through Instagram and say, okay, you know, I've never thought about not having other conveniences of a cell phone or how much I would be using it. Yes, it's super eye-opening when you decide to say, let's take a break. I had a family that did things like this, or take a break from sugar, right? I'm an integrated medicine trained therapist. So it's like, here's our addictions: carbs, sugars, Netflix, whatever it is. You're going to have withdrawals and you're going to relapse. And when I go through this addiction workshop at the end of the month, that's next, it's going to talk about those 5 stages, 6 stages, 7 stages of, and the average, this is, you know, a model from the 60s of, you're going to have relapse of 5 to 6 times before you change a behavior. So this is great for the first of the year. 78% of people on average will be done with their New Year's resolution in actually in 2.5 weeks. It's about 3 weeks and they never go back to it. So what does that say? You know, it's really hard. We relapse and we have mood modifications and conflict and boredom and stress and burnout and depression and anxiety that actually sends us back into that relapse. So, you know what happens when we get in a fight with a family member, what we turn to, right, to avoid. So those are all part of this. It's not just technology, but we're talking about technology today in the family, but there's lots of things that it can go through. So screen burnout, you know, there's tons of statistics on teens and their use, but let's just go in general here of like preventing screen burnout is to map out what is going on in your minds when we are drawn to the device. So that's exactly what someone just chatted. What's happening when we're drawn to the device? Sometimes it's really hard, self-disclosure, of me having my phone in a different room. What's going on when we can't put, you know, with our own, if we're drawn to our device, what's going on with us? So preventing it is breaking from it, honestly. What am I aiming to do? This is, and I'll talk about that in the addiction class too. That's exactly what professionals suggest, is breaking from it. So our dopamine, I'm not going to go into dopamine today, but dopamine is exactly what's happening. Okay. So when I'm bored, I need some dopamine. Boredom is the opposite of dopamine. So our teenagers are producing 3 times the amount of dopamine than they ever will in their life. They're the adolescents. And I have that book referenced in the back. It's called Brainstorm by Dan Siegel. So what's happening? We need some dopamine. What do we get when we scroll? Dopamine. And so our baseline dopamine or our peak dopamine, we can't get back, So I have thousands of likes and I get lots of dopamine. And then when's the next time I'm going to get that much dopamine again? I have to do something remarkable to get thousands of likes on my Facebook page. So, but just screen burnout in general, back to working, us folks, Zooming, being on our phones a lot more, being on our screens a lot more. It's caused some burnout. You think, oh, I'm really exhausted. Well, during an in-person conversation, the brain focuses partly on the words being spoken. Of course they do. But it also derives the additional meaning from dozens of nonverbal cues. You can see me. If you can see me, I want you to see me, because there's lots of nonverbal cues. My voice, my hand, I'm a passionate person when I'm in therapy. It's like, I want to feel the energy of that. Can I get that in a Zoom? Yes, I can. Can I get it face to face more? Yes. It's very different when you are face to face with someone. And if you're fidgeting while you're talking, or if they inhale quickly, right? And even this is not my words on here. This is a quote from that that article right there. You know when to, interrupt, or when to say, hey, what's going on? Or so when we're talking to our kiddos, text, you don't get any of that. We know this. We've talked about this. Everybody says, oh, I don't get the same meaning in a text. So it's because it's only about 7% words, right? You know how that works with our body language. 3% is completely nonverbal. It's not what I'm saying. It's what keeps us engaged is everything else. So it's not as exhausting when you're in person. It's more exhausting when we're in a meeting, in a Zoom meeting, and things like that. So sleep issues. One more thing. This is just a little bit of rundown on internet stuff that we're seeing, that we're dealing with and having issues with. Longitudinal study. Heavy users of computer, social media. This is huge. When I talk about sleep, sleep's my number one thing. It's like, how are we sleeping? Why are we not sleeping? What's going on, with insomnia? And if you go to my sleep hygiene workshop, I talk about this. If you look at your phone, I think, don't quote me, but it was about 16 minutes we lose of our REMs, of our good cycled sleep, if we look at our phone for like 30 seconds. So if you wake up and look at the time and you open your screen, you just lost 16 minutes. It takes that much longer for you to fall asleep or to have effective sleep. So it is what it is. Blue light's one of the worst things to do before bed. Social media is all of that is 1 hour before sleep, minimum. And I teach families, it's like, turn the electricity off, turn it off, turn the lights off, turn the electricity off, turn the Wi-Fi off, turn everything off at 9 o'clock. So 10 o'clock, we could possibly get into our REM sleep and say, oh, but right now, REM and circadian rhythm, it's 7 o'clock. You should be almost asleep by, if you're really on rhythm with the sun. So we got to go to bed earlier, wake up earlier. But really in the winter, this time of year, we can sleep a lot more, and we're not. So you can go into that sleep hygiene, and I think I have one in the next month or two. It's called Why We Sleep. Will be a good workshop. It's from a book, and a main guy that's done most of the research on that for 40 years. So it's called Why We Sleep. So screen time and internet usage are found to affect sleep. Of course that it is. Let's see, so just know that definitely, like I said, it's really what the most important is right before you go to sleep is eliminating that for at least an hour. Light, screen time, social interaction is huge, and all those things. And doing it in your bed is one of the worst things you can associate sleep with is the internet. Okay, so let's get to the family. So this values word right here is what time, energy, money is. I have this in multiple screens. I teach a lot about balance, energy. Where do you put your balance? And it's always something to do with time, energy, money. And then where you put that is what you value. So your values in your family is one of the most important things that you can reevaluate. So what do you value? And there's value lists. There's, kind of moral code. Like, what's your moral code? I have people like, here's 200 values. Pick out your top 10, categorize them into top 5 categories, and then pick one boundary that you need to have around that value, if that makes sense. So it's boundaries around our values to core values to keep them safe, to keep them afloat instead of sinking. So, and then you say, okay, how much time do I put into this value? How much energy and money? So if you value your home, you put time, energy, money into that. You put a lot of energy into cleaning it and keeping it safe and having a safe place. And then it's cost a lot of money and time. So, but the better example that I give is like family dinner. It's not easy to do. It's easier to go get McDonald's. It's even cheaper sometimes, right? But if you're making a really healthy meal and you're taking the time and the energy and the money to do family dinners, and then you have rules around that, right? So everyone has to be home by a certain time to eat dinner for most nights out of the week, or you're going to allow phones at the dinner table, but what's your real value about? Here's family dinner, but then here's all the reasons underneath: to connect, to eat healthy, to be healthy, to curb your balance, to physical balance, your diet. You're gonna be better with a whole bunch of things. So you just got to reevaluate that, and that's what we're going to talk about next. Is kind of like checking in. So it's like, wait, we're talking about technology and families, but if there's one thing that you're going to choose to curb technology, if that's a problem in your family, if that seems to be something that's a problem, there's not very many people that don't have a problem with it, but so this is where we go into time. So you reevaluate your time as a family and you say, okay, this can be done by anybody. And this is in my time management class workshop that's on on the YouTube channel. So there's 160 hours in a week. So what are we doing with our 160 hours? You just jot that down for a week. What do you do? How long does it take you to do this? How much TV you're watching? How long is your commute? How many hours you're working? And all those things. And so just look at that and say, okay, here's time management. The clock says commitments, appointments, scheduling, goals, projects. I always call goals projects. What's our project? What does that project look like? Will it be done today? Is it a daily project? Is it a weekly project? Is it a 5-month project? Is it a 5-year project? And so you look at those and you say, okay, what are our activities? What's the time management? What are these activities for the week? And time is always the boss with that, right? And then here's Covey's vision. It's a compass. So it's a little different. And so it's like, okay, values, principles, mission statement, direction, and control and power. So that's bigger to me. It's like, okay, here's this compass that's going to direct us, your vision, right? But it also has to a time. So here's time, here's the clock, but then here's a compass. So just kind of do that analogy with your family one night. Say, okay, what's our direction? What's our mission statement? We're going to talk about that a little bit. But wake up calls are when we do okay, what we do, let's get that right. It's when we do something, right? We do doesn't contribute to what is most important. Now, that can be a wake-up call. If we're doing something that's not most important, right, to you individually, your individual family. It's not most important to me. It's not most important to your neighbor. It's what's most important to you. And we know that that's most important because we chose our value system and our mission statement and our principles, your moral code that you live by as a family, and the direction it's going to take you. So what's most important? I mean, we might not know that right now. What's most important? There's a lot of like, well, we want everyone to be happy, our kids to be happy. What's most important is that we're open and we're connected. What's most important is that we have trust, that we feel understood in our home, all those things. You find out what your most important is, or your top three, and say what's our vision with that, and then what's our goals and projects with time. What does that look like? So that's just a little exercise you can do to see where you're out of balance and see where you are balanced of 168 hours in the week. When I do this as a group, of 15 or 30, most average, I've done it 100 times. And here's the average, right? Food, sleep, commute, work, right? These average 5 things that everyone does, most likely. And it comes out to be about 140, hours a week or less. And that's with working 55 hours a week on average. And you think, where is my 40 plus hours going in a week? Where does your 45 hours? The average that I usually come out with is with people giving me their hours is 45 to 50 hours a week. So think about it. What are we doing with our 45 to 50 hours a week? What is your kids doing with theirs? Yeah, that's a lot of time. A lot of time. So this is what we ask. What's the impact you feel like having a smartphone and computer in your home has made on your relationships? If we're not spending time on the computer, what are we doing? What are we doing instead? And I'm sure you're playing board games or you're watching a movie together. So you're not alone together, but you're together. You do the best you can, right? Some kids won't play with you, but some will. I don't know how many times I can tell you, if I would, on how many times kiddos, young kiddos and adolescents are saying to me, I don't spend enough time with my parents. And they say that to me. They don't spend quality time with me. Now, if your love language is time, we've got a problem. And they won't say that to their parents as much, but they say that. And then I've had a kiddo, huge, off the top of my head, an example of like, she's expressing these things and why she's depressed and why she, feels this way and that way, and she feels disconnected. And she actually told her parents after our session is like, I need more time with you and I need less time babysitting. And they listened to her, and she's like, they actually took time off work. We talked her through this. We did this and we did this. And I was just like, whoa, it was amazing. So hear your kids, listen to them. Even though they might say one thing, they really don't mean it. They mean something else. So you got to kind of read between the lines there, and you got to go to their love language and say what you're really saying is you need this or need that. So it is difficult, to get balanced on that and to juggle that. Um, so this is a good question. How does your family or you self-soothe an emotion? I have a self-soothing workshop that talks about that and that lists those. If you don't know what self-soothing is, how do we self-soothe an emotion? Thankful, but back to that chat question and comment. When I feel bored and lonely, what do you do? What do you do to self-soothe yourself? Do you go journal? Do you go call a friend? Do you go for a walk? Or do you turn on Netflix? Or do you go to your phone? Or do you, drink a glass of wine? I don't know. That's, adults. But then here's kids. What do they do to self-soothe an emotion? So self-soothing is always about an underlying root emotion that we don't really know we're having. And so self-soothing can be very harmful. Self-soothing is binge eating, cutting, drugs, alcohol, picking, wetting the bed. Self-soothing is sucking the, things that are okay and things that turn into just avoidances. So look at your self-soothing. And a lot of times that's been turned to internet, and what we're talking about here is technology. So what is your family mission statement and your values? We talked about that, about around time, and what are your new boundaries around technology that you want to have? Going back to what's the impact in spending time together. These are just some ideas. Okay. So highly effective families. This is one of my books referenced. Okay. So it says, what's one thing again that you want to change in your family's value system? So hot topic time is once a week. You either do it as a couple or as a family. And I always have couples do it, but once a week, 30 minutes, it's scheduled. Once again, it's time, it's scheduled, it's safe. Pick your family mission statement, like I said, pick your top 5 values that go along with that. Boss time. So boss time is about the clock, and the child gets to be the boss. I do this in play therapy and with families. Like, okay, now there's a couple of rules that you want to put down if you want, like you can't throw something hard at me. I always say that in therapy sessions. Like, you can, one rule is that we're done when we're done. So it's timed, and you can't throw something hard at me. So then, it's like, I get to be the boss of everything else? You sure do. And that's just kind of how that works. It's a little bit of a play therapy thing. Mandatory family fun, I call it. So what's your mandatory family fun time? Have you got that scheduled every week, every month, every year for vacation time? And then, like I said, family dinner. Statistically, there's not one other thing out there still that makes a family successful compared to family dinner. And like I said, in one of my other family values and time webinar, I think I put in their statistics about we've had more dinner time, and it wasn't COVID. There was some research that was like, we're eating dinner more often together. Of course, for that first year, we didn't go out. We didn't go to a restaurant. So we were kind of forced to go to the grocery store, and what happened there. And so it's like, oh, family dinner, but are we connected when we're having family dinner? And then my favorite, literally after family dinner, is cleaning up your environment. So cleaning up something is one of the best things to be effective. Is like, okay, do we need to clean up our dining room table so we can have dinner on it? Yes. Do we need to clean up something so we can have, so it's like, here's our cleanup, and then we can have it's a successful game night or whatever. And then down to balance of just 168 hours in the week and getting balanced. So those are just some connecting ideas. Of course, there's lots others, but mandatory family fun. I mean, I had multiple families like, well, they come in and, say yeah, we're like playing games again together, and we've made it, and the kids have asked for that. The teenagers, I'm not kidding, they're like, yeah, we're like playing together on Sundays more, or Saturday nights or whatever. Um, and it's really helped us. And I'm like, because they've asked for that, and the parents are like, okay, let's make time for this. Um, so that all sounded great, right? Like, tell me how wonderful and easy that is. You can chat me and tell me how easy that is to do mandatory family fun, and then like be less busy, so you're not juggling so much, so you can do all this stuff, so you can just connect more. It's quite difficult, it seems. And here's the statistic I was talking about, is like 2.42 hours on the phone, 1 hour computer, 1 hour of TV equals what, so add that up, we're almost, so 3, 4, 5 hours almost on school days. That's the latest statistic, not too long ago. 5 hours a day on school days adolescents are spending on screen time. So I always, that's a part-time job. That's 5 hours a day times 5. That's 25 hours a week. So what are we doing with our time? Yeah, it's like, well, it's as much as a part-time job. So when teenagers and adolescents start getting, a job, they're working, they hopefully won't be doing as much of that. But it's super easy to be an hour on computer, an hour on TV, and almost 3 hours on your phone a day, minimum. So here's your boundaries. Don't pick your battles, just pick your boundaries. Parental controls, like I said, phones in at night, electricity off, Wi-Fi off, all those things. Limited time and data, those are checked, and mealtime, we talked about. What are the rules about your phone? What are your rules about the bar? Okay, so a little bit of this with boundaries, setting guidelines and contracts, okay, rewards when this is done, all these things on this list here. Teaching about unwanted harm and danger. Okay, so we're going to spend a moment on that. So all this is just, your basic stuff, right? What happens when you break the rules with your phone? Teenagers have an identity crisis. I call it cutting off their arm and they bleed to death when you take away their phone. And you can laugh, because I hope somebody out there is laughing, because it's true. It is so true. It's like cutting off their arm, and this is how I describe it, is their arms being cut off and their identity is gone without that phone. And it's serious. So can we use that as a consequence? I would, we just, when they're doing good with their phone and they turn their phone in, they get their phone back. That's a reward. That you can check it at any time. That's a reward. You get your phone back after a check it. You get a reward if you do this, this, and this. So teaching about unwanted harm and danger, bullying, porn, stalking, hate crimes, ID theft, violence, online predators. So we all know what that looks like, most of us, but do we really know what Kick app is known for? Do we really know what that app is used for? Before this last incident on TV, did you know what that was? I did. So online predator, there's just certain apps and things that are very unsafe to a point. Not all, but here's the bar, right? Here's the law. I'm very diverse in the courts and the laws of different things. And so here's the law, right? So I always tell parents, here's the bar. For me, for the law, so, sexting, pornographic images, all those things here's the law, right? And then here's bullying. Yeah, if we have a charge that can happen with someone cyberbullying us, then it's the law. Hate crimes, the law. ID theft, the law. Violence, domestic violence, is not acceptable. Online predators are not acceptable. So all those things that are listed there of unwanted harm and danger is the law. So anytime that happens, that is an automatic have lost privileges of owning a device or having access to a computer. And then if someone does that to our kiddos or us, then that's a violation of the law. So we have to, underage pornographic images is against the law, stuff like that, right? So you get me, right? So any questions about that, you can chat. Let's any discussion so far that you want to comment. If you have any comments, or just put it in the chat there if you would like, or send it to Heather like she said anytime.
I haven't received any questions so far, but like Carol said, just send them in and we will ask them. But if not, thank you everybody for being here, and we'll send you this recording later this week.
Yeah. So do we have the power, right? Do we have the power to take back the power? Do we have the power to give to our kids to take back the power if they need to, right? So meaning, do we have control? Can we go with no power after 8 p.m.? Can we, no fuel, no carbs, no exercise, same thing. It's like, what's good for us that we can go without? What little things that we can do to unplug. And it's repetitive here, right? Taking back power in the kitchen, bedroom, and bathroom. Those are our power rooms. And so if it's a bedroom thing, taking back power, taking the cord out of the bedroom, taking the TV out of the bedroom, taking the phone out of the bedroom, because that is not where we have electronics. It's just not. And then kitchen, taking back the power. Once again, food is really very vital, and it's a power room. We either eat, if we want to fight with someone, when we have a 2-year-old and they're going to throw food on the floor, yeah, they're gonna try to take back some power. And an adolescent's gonna try to not show up for dinner or have their phone at the dinner table. Pick your boundaries. Just pick them and stick to them. So those are some examples of, if you do not unplug, use blue light blocker glasses plus. There's different levels of that. That's the basic. Blue light blocker glasses are awesome to make sure that just helps your GABA release and your melatonin release when you're supposed to. So like a 20-minute workout, GABA is released and can improve your mood for 12 hours. So if you want to look up GABA, look it up. That's a whole other subject, but your melatonin, GABA, is your melatonin, serotonin, dopamine's in the gut, and you got to transmit it. GABA is an amino acid. So things like that. Take back your power, decide what that looks like. And here's another one of how to improve the moment. I don't think we can do this when we're on our phones. I promise you. I can't meditate when I'm looking at Facebook. Sorry. I have to be in the moment. So how do we improve the moment? Here's some ideas. How to fulfill your depth, your value, and your heart and your soul, of getting to that place of stillness, of quietness, of being present and not being in fear brain, in avoidance brain. And there's some recaps. I'm not going to go over them. We're out of time. So if anyone has a comment, set routines. I've gone over that. Set times, 10-minute distractions, track your balance. Let's see. Clean up your environment. Anything I didn't go over. Do your best. Just do your best. And then here's the books of resources and references.